Hi, this is Lisa. At the I'm Lisa at the Globe Gazette, but I'm just talking to you right now. It's just me. But today is June 11th, and it's June 11, 2020, and that is the 2-year anniversary of the day I started at the Globe. It started full time at the Globe, I should say. I started at the Globe in November of 2016 as a part time employee. And I came on full time then in June of 2018. So I want to tell you guys really quick this story and why I always make such a big deal about my anniversary here, or I guess it's the second time I've made a big deal about it. But I just find it super interesting. Well, of course, I find my own life interesting, but I find it super interesting, and it's kind of a cool story, I think. And maybe you'll think that too. And then you can watch me while I'm editing this photo that I took a couple weeks ago with my cell phone, when the other photographer and I, Chris, and Shane, our sports writer, went out looking for storms. And I haven't edited these yet, so you can just see kind of beginning to end a quick edit. These don't need much because they were pretty colorful and great, but I want to make it more dramatic and cool. But anyway, so let me tell you the story. So back in the beginning of my senior year, so the in between the summer before my senior year, I took a photography class, and I fell in love with it, right? And so I pursued it. I kept doing it through school, the rest of high school, and into Nyack at the junior college here. Community college, I should say. And while I was at Nyack, I was the photo editor, or a photo editor, I should say. And I was getting, it was all digital back, or it was on film back then. And so I was putting the pictures together for publication in the student newspaper. And while I was doing that, a job opportunity arose, and I applied for it. I was at the Globe Gazette. My grandma told me about it. She called me and she's like, there's a job opening. I think you should apply, So I did. And I got an interview, and I was fully qualified. I was still in school, and they were kind of excited about that. And it was for a photographer, obviously. Anyway, so I interviewed really well, I think. Well, I know I did because I got a second call back. So I interviewed really well, and I had all the qualifications. I was able to, my schedule was pretty flexible at that time. They were still going to allow me to complete school, which was great. It was kind of just a dream job. And I had a second interview scheduled. And then the week before that, my grandma actually died suddenly. And the day of her funeral was the day I was supposed to have the interview. Or maybe it was the visitation. But either way. But my grandma and I were super, super tight. And, I just didn't recover from her death very well. It took me a really long time to get out of it. And so I never rescheduled my interview. I got into a really big funk. I was in a huge depression, and I just never rescheduled it. And I regretted it, pretty much the rest of my life, because I thought, well, gosh, things could have gone a lot differently for me. I mean, but anyway, I ended up working a couple different places and landed at an insurance agency. And while I was there, I picked up the hobby of photography again. I was kind of depressed and in a bad place. I hated my job. And so I started taking photos again and really grew to like it. And I taught myself how to do digital I'd only done film before, film and darkroom, but so I learned all the digital stuff. I learned all the software. I taught myself everything and got, I retrained myself and I got good enough at it where I opened up a portrait studio and an art studio. And that was the kind of the one cool thing about my last job is I had the studio space for free. But anyway, after I'd opened that studio, one of our insureds, who I'd kind of become friends with, was weirdly enough the photo editor and the digital editor at the Globe Gazette. And he had told me a few times, how much, he liked my work and whatnot. And I was friends with him and his wife. And anyhow, so we just talk shop sometimes and whatever. And a few years, after we started chatting and became friends, he messaged me and asked me to call him. And why can't I find what I'm looking for here? And I did, obviously. And he said he had a job opportunity for me. And it was, it was for the Globe. It was going to be a freelance position, doing photography. And I was like, oh my gosh, cool. And I was really excited. And then, he said, well, eventually we'd like to turn this into, God dang it, a part-time position. So, but hold tight, but for now we're just going to get you in as a freelance. And I was like, that's fine. I was really, really excited and, whatever. Anyway, so within a few days, he called me back and he's like, actually, I got approval to make this a part-time position. And so I want to offer you the job. And then he pretty much said, that he wasn't interested in hiring anybody else, that the job was designed really for me, to get me in the door there. And I had really no idea that he thought of my work in that way. It never dawned on me once. So anyhow, I took the job. I was excited. It was a new style of photography. Well, it wasn't new, I guess, but it was new enough. Anyway, I learned it. I ended up going full-time there after a couple of years. I was miserable at my job, and he told me about a new job that was opening up. After I took the job, it was a news clerk position, and then I was going to be a part-time photographer too. After I took the job, within the last 2 years, our paper has restructured somewhat, and the newsroom has seen some changes, and my position went from news clerk / photographer to breaking news reporter / photographer to crime in courts, and I just found out today, public safety reporter and photographer, right? So I've gotten to shoot all these cool, just these amazing things, presidential campaigns and, heartwarming stories and cool, we got to go visit an older man in Wesley, Iowa with a miniature collection, which was beautiful. I mean, it's just I've seen some cool stuff. But anyway, so the funky part of this story is, right? Years ago, remember, I didn't turn down the job. I just didn't pursue the job, right? And then years later, the photo editor at the Globe, who happens to be an insured of mine at a job that I hate, offers me a position to come work with him. And then when I got there, we started chatting, and I said, I don't know if you know this, but I had applied for that job, this same job, years and years and years ago. And it turns out that the job that I did not pursue way back when is the job that he was hired for. So he got the job that I didn't pursue, and then later on created a position for me and offered me a position there. And now I'm doing exactly what I had planned to do way back then. Isn't that bonkers? I think it is. Anyhow, I'm just like gushing with like appreciation for my job and where I'm at. And the newspaper industry is really volatile and can be unstable at times, and it's sometimes you're just worried about like how your career is gonna go. And I'm just like so thankful that I'm even here. I can't even bear to think about losing this job or having it eliminated. So support your local newspapers. It's very, very, very important. I mean, subscriptions absolutely matter. It's not just advertising. Like, subscriptions matter. You can't sell advertising without subscriptions, right? So anyhow, support your local newspaper. People's like livelihoods and dreams depend on it. Like, not to sound corny or dramatic, but it's like the literal truth, because this is my dream and I'm doing it now, and I'll just be thankful for what I have. But support your local newspaper.